Welcome to Tips from the Tack Room. I'm Stacey with Glacier Peak Holistics, and I'd like to introduce Debe Gwynn, our CEO and founder. Happy first day of spring to everyone out there. And with springtime, everyone is thinking about riding. So let's talk tips. Today, let's talk about springtime and getting your horse tuned up after a long winter. Deb has some incredible input and insights on how to get our horses going, keep them comfortable, keep them happy, which can also help to maintain their performance and their attitude. Go ahead, Deb.
Hi there, everyone. Really happy spring. And when we actually have a bluebird day, there's not a cloud in the sky. That doesn't happen very often up here in Northwest Montana. So yeah, tips from the tack room. We're gonna get rolling. I can't wait to get back on my horse. They're fat and wondering where in the world I've been, where their saddle is. You guys have probably had a lot more riding if any of you have barns or don't live up here in the north where the snow is so deep. And in that case, then part of this isn't gonna, be pertinent to you. But like for me, for instance, as an endurance rider, I tend to do a lot of LSD in the spring, which is short for long, slow distance, not the drug. And long, slow distance just is that you walk, you start to get some contraction and pressure on your horse's legs and connective tissues and bones, and start building solid bone and start really working on the connective tissues so that they're ready when you're ready to ask them to do more. And it's really important to make sure that when those horses are asked to do something, that it's not just straight off the pasture and let's go, yippee skippy down the road. You gotta take into account that, yeah, they do move around a lot in their pasture environment, but it's typically not a hard surface. It's typically not stressful like it can be when we ask them to do things. So I guess with that in mind, that's why I start out the way I do. Today is today is first day of spring. So today is the day that everybody at my house starts on Peak Immune, which we do every season change. The reason being that, our bodies need more during different seasons. And, when we try to slough off all the sludge from the winter of not moving and not being active, and then all of a sudden we're starting to really move, it's really good to get rid of the internal winter blues, literally, for you and your animals. My dogs, my horses, everybody will be on Peak Immune for the next 10 days. I guess with that information, if you have a dog or a horse who is like on a show circuit, or you do endurance, you do dressage, they're traveling, they work hard every day, it's important for you to know that every time a horse is stressed, their immune system gets stressed too. And without a healthy immune system, you don't have a healthy horse, you don't have a happy horse. Things start to go sideways when their immune system is off kilter. So it's easy to take care of that on a maintenance type regime. When I was doing, which I'm not right now, but when I was doing a lot of endurance, I would do a 10-day period every month for my guys, just to keep them in tip-top shape, because we would travel sometimes 400 or 500 miles to go to a ride, and then they would do a 50 or 75 mile ride, as with me on their back. I would haul them, and then they would then they would haul me. I guess with that said, it's just really important that people understand that when you ask a lot, there's really simple proactive ways with herbs to make sure that your horse continues in the health that it's in right now, or better.
That is excellent advice. So for anybody who's traveling down the road or getting ready to travel down the road, whether it's rodeo, whether it's showing, whether it's endurance riding. A good start with a healthy immune system will make all the difference to your start this spring. Now, the product I really want to ask Deb about is my new obsession, my new favorite product in our product line. That's Inflapotion. So I want to ask Deb to tell us first, what is Inflapotion, and do you use it on your own horse?
Oh my gosh. I have been using Inflapotion for about 25 years. When I actually was telling the story yesterday about how it came to be. And I had a horse that had a condition known as, well, we call it scratches, but it can also be called greasy heel. It's basically a fungus that attacks the fetlocks, the backs of the fetlock area, and and it's painful. It gets scabby. When you start picking off the scabs and trying to medicate them, then their legs swell up. And I literally had a horse with 4 legs that looked like this. They were like tree stumps.
Is this anything like mud fever?
Yes, it's exactly mud fever. That's
okay.
For it. Yep.
Okay.
So I, at the time, owned a health food store, and I had an apothecary because I was a new budding herbalist, and I thought that everything, and first healed myself, and I knew if I could heal myself, I could heal anything with herbs. And I don't mean that in the literal sense, as far as, a car wreck. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I actually did get myself to feel better through the use of herbs. So I became an herbalist, and I created this formula, which I always say my formulas are created half intellectual and half instinctual. And I think with that's how the synergy happens. And the synergy being that what one herb does its job, and then another herb takes any kind of slack from that one and makes it better. The next herb makes that one better, and the next herb makes that one better, and so on and so on and so on. So you get a complete cycle of everything taken care of while you're using herbs. Obviously, you have to use the right herbs. So Inflapotion was created on an afternoon. I gave it to this horse that night. I gave it to him the next morning, and I gave it to him the following night. By the next morning, his legs were back to total definition, and his skin was pink. It was no longer red and hot, and he was not in pain anymore. And then later on, I came up with Mountain Salve, which has got Inflapotion herbs in it, but it's an external salve that works hand in hand with Inflapotion for a case like this. You get rid of the inflammation on the inside, and then you help on the outside by giving it the comfort and the soothing properties that a balm or a salve can do.
So does that mean that these products would work well for rain rot too, which is what a lot of people have coming on pretty soon with the rains coming?
Yes, in tandem, they work really well together for rain rot. Yes.
Without having to put a chemical on your horse, to be able to use natural herbs to be able to heal mud fever, rain rot, all of the skin issues we all battle come springtime.
Correct.
Perfect. So Inflapotion is mainly for healing skin issues then?
Nope. Inflapotion is actually for systemic inflammation, and it doesn't matter where it is. We honestly, I am amazed on a daily basis about the stories that people tell me that Inflapotion has done for their dog or their horse or their cat. It's really phenomenal. I've had horses that have they're totally allergic to bugs, to any kind of bug bites, And we have some nasty little gnats at my house, plus, you know, mosquito bites. But these little gnats are, I don't know what it is that they do or what kind of poisons they put in these horses, but they swell up. And I had an older mare who literally would get edemas on her stomach that would, like this big. Her legs would swell up all the way, and it was caused from bug bites around her udder area. I would give her Inflapotion in the morning, and they would be gone by the time I got home that night. And if I didn't keep her on maintenance doses of Inflapotion, she would swell up like a balloon. And that's just, I mean, that's one way of looking at it in the systemic route. If you have an injury, like a leg injury, horses have a hyper-inflammatory response. Anybody who knows horses knows that. I mean, they get a bump and it, for what we consider no reason at all. Now, some inflammation is really important. I mean, obviously the body knows that to heal certain tissues after a trauma or an injury, there has to be a certain amount of inflammation. However, not as much as these guys seem to think that they need. Horses that are stocked up from standing in a stall all night long, things like that. It just helps the inflammation that continues. Horses that are working really hard, horses that, you know, like if you're stressing them for training, it just keeps them comfortable so that they can keep their head in the game and they don't have to worry about how much they're hurting. It's proactive.
So if we're getting ready to start getting our horses out, tuned up for spring, my horses have been standing in stalls all winter long looking at each other, probably thinking of ways to suffer me. And I'm ready to get them out and get them going. Can you tell me, this is a product that I want to use on all of my horses that are getting ready to get tuned up, and which horses would I use it on?
Older horses for sure. Anything over 15 that's still working is considered, in my opinion, an older horse, and they just need a little extra help.
Careful there.
What's that?
Hey, now let's be careful there.
Well, we only have 2 feet. They have 4. Difference.
Okay.
So if you're pulling your horse off and out of pasture, out of the stall, and you know you're going to start slowly working them back into shape. Now, you know, once a horse has been fit, it takes a lot less time for it to become fit again after a long winter of not working or not doing anything. However, if you've got a horse that's never been brought into condition, it takes a long time, and you have to give the horse the time. It's like building muscles. You know, you have to break them down in order for them to repair and build themselves even bigger. Same with bones, same with connective tissues. You have to literally break them down in order for them to get stronger. So as you're breaking them down, they don't have to suffer. They don't have to have the pain involvement that happens when you go lift weights and then tomorrow you can't move, or you do 25 sit-ups today because you haven't done any in 20 years and you can't move tomorrow. Everything hurts.
Right, because that kind of stiffness and soreness then affects their attitude and their willingness to work. So what you're saying is Inflapotion can help to avoid, with a correct training schedule, so enough downtime in between training sessions, Inflapotion can help to avoid the soreness and the stiffness that's associated with getting things back in shape.
With the I don't want to do this because I hurt syndrome.
That's the one.
Yeah, it keeps their head in the game because they don't have to worry about, or they don't have to feel like, you know, every time you do something with them, they're going to hurt. And you know,
so does it also shorten their recovery time? So
absolutely. Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Absolutely. Yep.
I noticed with my horses, I have a 20-year-old horse that is a little slow to get started. And I've noticed that he's not nearly as slow to get started this spring. And he seems to have more fluidity in his movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that I've noticed just since I started using the Infla Potion on him.
Yep. And that's exactly what happens. You know, dogs and horses, it's the same thing. You know, dogs too, you know, senior dogs who can't get off their bed or they can't walk the stairs anymore because they just hurt. Within 2 days, these guys are running up the stairs and jumping on the bed. I mean, to the point that we're like, wow, that's a really, really good story. Or, you know, my dog hasn't wanted to play ball for 2 years and she met me with a ball at the door this morning. I might be putting too much into this, but that's really cool. That was what someone said to us one time. And I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Who's not happy about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I have some questions for you so that I make sure I'm using Infla Potion correctly, because I've seen a dramatic change in that 20-year-old horse. And he's the oldest of my horses, and he's probably shown the least amount of fluidity in his movement over the last couple of years. So that's why this change was so dramatic to me. And I noticed that even though I started using the Infla Potion on him for a different reason, then all of a sudden his movement changed and I'm seeing these changes in his body. So as long as we have you hostage in front of the camera, now's my perfect chance to get the answer to all my questions. So is Infla Potion restricted in any competition forums? So if I'm riding endurance or if I'm showing in dressage or a sport horse or a rodeo horse?
No. The only product we have that has anything that will test on the EFI or you know, any of those boards is our herbaprin, which has valerian in it, which has been you know, put on the no-no list. And that is pretty much something that you would use after a hard ride or after, they work hand in hand together. Infla Potion can be used as maintenance, where herbaprin is as needed. So if, you know, if a horse or a dog works too hard or plays too hard today, and tomorrow they're going, ow, 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 then that's when herbaprin is called for. So the Infla Potion is used as maintenance on, you know, if you're working or showing and really, you know, building you know, the body, or, you know, an older horse just to keep a comfort level, you can use it as maintenance. I've used it as long as 8 years on one dog. Had their blood work done every 2 years just to make sure that there was no issues with it, and her blood work was perfect. I had another one that was on it for 7 years. His blood work was perfect every time. So it totally can be used as maintenance. The way we recommend to use it is if you've got a chronic issue or you're working hard, you know, running up and down mountains or, you know, jumping over big fences or whatever it is that you do, then it's used as maintenance. You know, if they're off for the winter, then probably not so much, unless they're older and it just helps them to stay comfortable. I had my older mare on it, you know, she was 29 when she passed, and she, you know, she never had a misstep. She never had mobility issues because she was always on Infla Potion. Started out because of the bug bites, but ended up because she was, you know, she was geriatric, and it just helped her to be comfortable. And, you know, comfortable horses are happy horses.
So what you're saying is, for instance, my 20-year-old horse, if he moves better when he's on it, I could just keep him on it as part of his regular feeding program.
Correct. Now, the other way that we, you know, how I recommend to do herbs, especially the Infla Potion, is to use the maximum dose, as it says on the label, which is 1 to 2 tablespoons, 2 to 3 times a day, depending on how bad the issue is. But then back off as soon as you see results. So
Okay.
your goal is to only feed it once a day.
Okay. And so if you're using it for a horse, you're ready to get your horse out and get them dusted off from the winter. You're going to use the maximum dose right now while they're getting started. If you're using it just for maintenance to make sure that they don't get sore or stiff.
That would be a once a day. Unless they're showing that they've got a lameness, or they've got, they've got something that you can discern that's not normal, in their movement, in their attitude, in whatever, that they're not comfortable. The only time you want to do it twice a day is when you can actually see that they are not comfortable.
Okay. So a horse, for instance, like mine that I'm talking about, he's a once a day kind of horse as well. Anybody who's thinking, all right, it's springtime, I'm ready to throw a leg over.
Yep.
So that's going to be a maintenance dose, and
yes,
they can keep that as long as that horse is responding well to it and
yep,
everybody's happy,
yep,
then they can stay with that dose.
So here's another little tip. If you are, you're going to a big ride this weekend or a big show this weekend, you can give it to them morning and night, before the performance for breakfast and at night afterwards, so that they can actually they can relax, and they aren't so stiff and sore tomorrow. So if you've had a day of really hard working, where they're out working cows or a big reining competition or whatever, and that they've really strained their body, you can give it to them twice a day. And I totally would recommend that.
So if I haul my dressage horse to a competition, I could use it twice a day the day before, and I might in fact see even more fluidity in his movement.
Yep. And also then after the performance that night.
Perfect. So then on that note, can it actually help calm down a horse that maybe somebody might be considering some of the calming supplements for?
No, not necessarily. The only reason that it would calm them is if the reason that they're not calm in the first place is pain or any kind of uncomfortable something happening in their body. If that's the case, then yeah, they're going to feel a lot better, and they're not going to have that stress of, oh my God, I'm going to hurt myself.
So if their attitude issue is related to pain, then yes, it's going to help with that.
If their attitude
if the
is related to anything physical, if it's related to anything physical, the herbaprin has sedatives, some mild sedative herbs, so that actually can help slow things down in the attitude world, because it takes away the pain. And they're able to get some rest, and they're able to, sleep and actually have a comfortable night, so that tomorrow morning they're not like I'm, like I feel if I haven't had any sleep because I hurt, they wake up in the morning and they're ready to move because they don't have the pain issues. So
how quickly will the inflammation work? Knowing, of course, that all horses are different.
It's typically within 48 hours that people see a huge difference in any animal. And it depends on if they're, if they've had a really serious injury or an issue. Dogs, for instance, there have been some dogs that we've had stories about that have taken, up to, 10 days. They see a little bit right off the bat, and then it just progressively gets better and better and better.
So more gradual.
But horses typically, unless they have, a serious injury, it's within 24 hours or 24 to 36 hours is what I've always seen. I would stretch that out to 48 just to be on the safe side.
Now, I had someone at the barn where I ride ask if the inflammation can help with gastric ulcers.
Only in the anti-inflammatory department of that. We are actually working right now on a new gut formula for horses that is going to involve some serious strategically used probiotics, as well as some really good herbs that help with things like that. So it can be used as preventative, as far, for traveling. Traveling is always a big deal on a horse. They get stressed out so easy.
Right.
And this is going to be the kind of formula that you would want to use, like pre and post of any kind of big activity. Or if you've got horses that just, are naturally what do they call
Anxious?
that?
More anxious?
Something Nelly.
Nervous Nelly.
Nervous Nelly, that's it. So
I have a worrier myself.
Yeah.
So now, if somebody has a horse that, say, just trail rides, is the inflammation still for them?
It depends on the horse. It depends on the trail rides. If you're asking an endurance rider about a trail ride. I used to put on 30 or 40 miles a day just in training. So that was my trail rides.
We're not talking that kind of trail ride. We're talking somebody whose horse maybe gets out once on the weekend and they're just going on a trail ride. They're out with their friends. Maybe they're going up and down some hills, maybe not, but this is a horse that possibly doesn't get worked like a horse that's competing or working hard. So I'm going to put it in the category of not a working horse.
Okay.
Where it's got a job. Its job is to be a companion and to go out and trail ride.
A weekend warrior.
That's the one.
Okay, so
that horse is not riding with you.
So so it depends. It's going to depend on the age of that horse. If it's a youngster and they run around the pasture all the time, chances are really good that they're going to be just fine. If it's an older horse who pretty much stands around and tries to find food all day long, I have a couple of those. They're the ones who are more likely to be like, oh my gosh, I haven't put this many footsteps on my hooves in I don't know how long. So those ones, if you're planning on a big ride on Saturday or Sunday, I would start 2 days before and give it to them, once a day, and then give it to them a couple of days afterwards, and you're not going to have any problems.
And I'd like to clarify that we're not talking about Deb's version of a big ride, because her version of a big ride is a lot further than most of us are going.
Yeah, it's there's not a lot of us, but it sure is fun.
So my takeaway from this, if I understand it correctly, is inflammation is for every horse. The younger horses, it's going to be more in line if it's an injury or a particular issue. But basically what you're saying is any horse over 10 years old can benefit from inflammation, and it can be preventative, because all of us horse owners know that the greatest risk we have secondary to gut issues is leg issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you're trail riding, or God help you if you're riding with Debbie on the weekend, or anything that falls in between there, then it can actually work to protect the joints and protect the connective tissue and reduce inflammation. So it can be preventative in that.
Yes. Yep. It can be preventative, and it can, it can change the path of the horse. If you've got a horse that's happy and healthy and loves their job, and they're comfortable doing it, they're going to want to do it for a whole lot longer.
longevity is everything, especially all of us know when we have a horse that's that horse for us,
Yes.
that dream horse, you want them to go on forever.
Yes. Yes. And you want to do everything that you can to make that happen.
Right. Right. So my takeaway from that is not just my 20-year-old horse should be on this. All of my horses should be on this supplement because they're all of them older than 10 years old, and all of them could benefit in one way or another.
Yep. Yep. Even if it's just for comfort.
Well, my husband will be thrilled to know that everybody's going to get the supplement now.
Aren't you glad you found us?
I'm thrilled, and I'm sure he is too. Not. In case anybody missed the sarcasm in my voice.
I think we all have one of those.
Is there anything that we haven't hit on Inflapotion that you, as the inventor and creator of this product, want us to know?
Only that if you have any kind of swelling, Inflapotion is called for. Whether, you know, and it doesn't matter where the swelling is, because this, Inflapotion is a smart blend. It goes wherever there's excess inflammation, it will go and help it move out. It moves it through the bloodstream. It cleans it out while it's in the bloodstream before it gets to the liver, so that the liver doesn't get clogged up, and moves it out where it's supposed to be, gone. I mean, all those little inflammatory cells need to be like gone. So that's pretty much all I can say is, you know, if it's indicated, it's safe. It's super safe. I've never heard of anyone having a problem. Even, I mean, I put a couple of pumps of vinegar in my horse's grain and put it in. Don't feed it dry, because it, you know, they could whiff it up in their nose, and you don't want to do that. They get enough respiratory stuff as it is. So I never feed it dry. I always use organic apple cider vinegar to dampen my grain, and then that's how I mix all of my herbs with it. And the horses love it. Some of them will.
That's good advice.
Out of my hand.
That's great advice. So with that in mind, we wish everybody a happy first day of spring and happy riding to everybody. If you have any questions about Inflapotion or any of our other products, please feel free to contact us. You can email us at info@glacierpeakholistics.com, or feel free to contact us. The website has any number of ways to contact us via email or telephone, instant message on Facebook. So we love to hear your testimonials if you have a story about your dog or your cat or your horse. Or if you have a question, please feel free to pass those along. If there's a topic anybody wants to hear about in our tips from the Tack Room, please feel free to send that along as well. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe out there.
#JustRide.